Hey, welcome back to another episode of Mike Check Real Life. My name is Mike, and I am your host. I'd like to thank you for joining us on our journey here. First thing I would like to request before we get started is if you could like and share this episode so we can get the word out to those that need to hear it. We really are trying to be an encouragement here for those that are out there still struggling in life, and we'd like to be able to offer some hope. So even if this episode doesn't speak to you personally, everybody knows somebody that's out there struggling. And if you could just help us reach them, that would be so amazing. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you could subscribe, that helps the algorithms show that this is actually of value. Also, if you're listening to the podcast audio on any of the many podcast hosting sites that we're on, if you wouldn't mind rating our program, that would help us in the algorithms there. So, with that being said, I won't ask any more of you. Let's go ahead and get started with today's episode. Thank you so much, and God bless. I want to thank you for tuning in. We're doing something a little bit different today. I apologize now if there seems to be any echo in the background. We're recording live in our new studio. We got a lot of work to do. I've got sound panels and wiring and all kinds of stuff to do in here. Lighting, obviously, the lighting is a little difficult, so I apologize if I seem washed out or maybe even shadowed on one side. I got a lot to get going in here. Even with the headphones on, I can hear myself echoing in the background, so I just pray it's not coming through the microphone too terribly bad. Luckily, there's some noise cancellation on here, and also in the software I use, it should be able to clean up the audio enough that it's not too terribly annoying. But I appreciate you for joining in and being part of this. This has actually been more than I ever expected. So I'm truly grateful for the opportunity and for everything that has happened. By way of algorithms, we've had over 20,000 views in the past month between the videos and the shorts and things of those natures. We still haven't really done a live stream, which is really where I would like to get with a call-in show and things like that. But I am getting some positive feedback. I've gotten a couple of phone numbers from people that are loosely acquainted to somebody that I may know. And so if I got a phone number for you, I will be returning that call to you. I appreciate those of you that don't share my personal phone numbers. However, we do have now a direct number to our podcast here. And so I will be sharing that number here in the future as we begin doing live stream and call-in shows and things like that, as well as for those of you that would like to connect. I hope you appreciate the semblance of privacy as, in personal life. I do have a family and things of those natures that people can, not everybody, but there can be those that like to come in and create controversy and chaos. And, we prefer not to do that. Not that I don't want to connect with people. I want to connect with everybody that wants to be connected with. I just don't need any drama and chaos coming in because somebody out there, for some reason, wants to decide to call up and for whatever reason, you know. But that being said, I appreciate you for being here. And we're going to do things a little bit different this week. I don't have any interviews to do. I was interviewing out of my home, out of my bedroom, the particular house that we are in, we use for ministry, and there's other individuals there. And so I had to be limited on who I could bring into that home for the privacy of others. But now that we've got the studio, it opens up so much more for us. And so I'm excited to be able to open up the doors and bring in more guests and whatnot. But today I just actually really wanted to touch some on, I wanted to share some insights that I've gained over, the past couple of weeks and share with you some of my thoughts and concerns, maybe even in our communities, and just talk with you, frankly. I mean, we talk about this being real life, right? This is Mike Check, real life. And I really do have a heart for testimonies, for bringing testimonies to people that are still hopeless and hurting and looking where they should be able to turn and trust and regain their lives. That's just, you heard my wife's testimony. If you listen to that, you heard my testimony. If you listen to that, Paul's testimony, Steve's testimony, Jeff's testimony, you heard where at some point in our lives, we were truly broken. We were at our rock bottom to the extent of not desiring to remain on this plane anymore. And yet, in all of our testimonies, we had a loving God that reached us. And whatever that level was, he reached down to us at that level. He left the 99 and he chased the one, us each individuals being the one. And if you don't know that story, I encourage you to pick up a Bible, research it. I'm not a preacher. I'm not going to give you addresses, and I'm not going to give you direct quotes because I don't want to screw anything up. I don't want to misrepresent. What I am is a person that loves people that are hurting and hopeless. And so I would encourage you to, it's not hard to do a Google search and say, what's the story about leaving the 99 and chasing the one? And you'll find that story in your Bible, because what you need to do is you need to learn to read it for yourself. Don't trust what any man is trying to tell you. It says, let God speak into your heart about that. But enough about that. That's about as extensive of preaching as you get out of me. I did want to share a little bit. So I got the opportunity to go fishing with a buddy of mine, and it was really fun. Now, I didn't catch anything. I was completely skunked. And for me, that was okay. I'm such a busy guy. What I really just wanted to do is, this is a tremendous man that I got to go fishing with. He's just super amazing. I just love spending time with him. He's just a solid individual. And he's an amazing fisherman. Like, he did not get skunked. I did. But he enjoys spending time on the water. I enjoy getting out and, spending time, whether that's on the water or where else. Not that I get to do it that often, but I was just sitting out there, and it was a cold day. This was just a couple days ago. It was a super cold day, and it wasn't too terribly bad because we dressed for the cold. We didn't necessarily dress too great for the wind, though, that we encountered. So anyhow, we're out there, and it's just so amazing. I got the opportunity to watch a bald eagle fly overhead. And, I'm Native American, and there's a big significance with bald eagles for us. Not that we worship them, it's just something significant in our culture. But anyway, just watching the bald eagle fly around. He came back a couple times. I was super elusive. I kept trying to get him on video, and I couldn't get him on video. And finally did. And it was just amazing to watch him just fly around. It's just circling and circling. And he was a younger bald eagle, still had some of his spots, but had grown in the white head and the white tail. And I was just awe-inspired at God's creation and looking around and the beautiful sunset, and, me and my buddy out there just bundled up with our faces covered, and me tried to catch fish. And it was kind of intriguing to me to sit and watch this, because here's my buddy who rarely gets skunked. Now, we've got the same lures. We've got the same bait, the same hooks. The rods are a little bit different, but irrelevant. We're doing the exact same thing. I've got 2 lines in. He's got 2 lines in. And yet, everywhere we stop, he gets a fish. Right? He gets a crappie here. He gets a striped bass there. Everywhere we stop, he gets a fish. And our lines aren't that far apart, right? And yet nothing's taken my bait. It's just, and it just kind of dawned on me. It's like, how much that really, to me, it was like an inspiration to me, because here we sit on this show. I really related it to this show, and how I related to the show. I know it sounds odd, but this is just the way my brain works. It's like, there are so many people that are going to come on this podcast, or that have been on this podcast. So we have such similar stories, and how we were broken, and how life may not have seemed fair, or things came along that hurt. And yet we're called to be fishers of men. We're disciples called to be fishers of men. And now my testimony can be, figuratively thought of as a fish and pole, right? The line's in the water. I've got the hook baited, and it's just waiting to catch. And Steve's testimony can be the same bait, just in a little different area in the water, waiting to catch. And Melissa's testimony, again, over here on the other side of the boat in the water, waiting to catch. And Paul and Jeff and any of the testimonies that we bring in here, right? We've all got our bait in the water. We're all in the same boat. Here we are. We're just trying to do our job and fish. And yet Melissa's bait might get taken, right? She'll catch one. She's in the same boat. That fish could have swam around my bait a handful of times, never took the bait. And yet it goes over, and for some reason, it just connects with Melissa's line, right? The next one comes around and circles. My hook doesn't take the bait. Steve's hook catches another. Then you've got Paul's hook catching a fish. Maybe my bait never gets taken.
but I get to enjoy sitting inside a boat with such a bunch of amazing people and watching each one of them. The end goal is to get fish in the boat. And so Melissa gets a fish in the boat. Paul gets a fish in the boat. Steve gets a fish in the boat. Jeff gets a fish in the boat. Maybe I don't get a fish in the boat this time. But you know what? We're going to go out. We're going to go fishing again. And next time, maybe my hook's going to get a fish and it's going to come in a boat. And the end goal is to get the fish in the boat. And the cool thing about it is at the end of the trip, we all get to enjoy the fish, right? We get to all enjoy the fish. And another cool thing that happened is we were out there, and there just happened to be a bass tournament going on out there. And we've got these really fancy, expensive boats flying by us all day long. Now we're in a little tiny aluminum John boat, not you get two guys in there. It's not much anything. The waves are knocking us around. At one point, it was pretty intense. We ended up getting close to shore and anchoring, so we didn't get thrown around so much. But at one point, there's a guy that's out there, and he's part of this bass tournament. And he calls over to us. He says, "Hey, you guys want some crappie?" He's fishing for bass in his tournament. Crappie aren't going to do him any good, but he's caught them. He don't want to throw them back, right? And that's kind of like when we catch fish, we don't want to throw them back, right? We want to keep them in the boat. And this guy, now we're not going to, us personally, we weren't out there just fishing to eat. And I know there's questions about that for some people and everything, but we were out there fishing to catch and throw back. And some fish that we take, we will use as bait fish and try to catch bigger fish. And so my buddy tells him, "Yeah, we'll take one." And the guy's like, "I got 6 or 7. You only want one?" He wants to give them to us to eat. You're like, "Yeah, yeah, just one, just all we need." And we're thinking bait. He's like, "Well, I've never heard such a thing," but he comes over and he gives us a fish, right? And that kind of to me, again, that was very indicative of like, here we are all in the boats. Think of it as your congregation, right? Maybe your boat really doesn't, it's not meant for this kind of fish, right? But rather than just discard of the fish, let's find another boat that might be willing to take the fish. Again, this is kind of the way my brain works. So I'm giving you a little insight on just kind of the craziness that goes on inside of this head of mine. It was very impactful for me uh, to sit and watch this kind of stuff, and then and God's creation is just so amazing. And just look around at it, watch it, take some time to be quiet and just enjoy it and watch it. But there was this other opportunity while out on the boat, and we're watching these birds fly. This is a huge flock of birds, and it's flying, and they're kind of doing this falling back and then going and then falling back, but they're making forward progress. It's kind of like, the whole 2 steps forward, 1 step back thing. When they're coming back, they're changing leadership. So it's almost like, I don't know if you're familiar with how geese fly, but they always let one lead for a while and then he'll fall to the pack and it kind of breaks the wind and lets them do distance. And so these birds were doing something similar to that, but they'd get going forward quite a distance and then they'd all kind of fall back, but they all stayed real close together, very close together. And when one would fall back further than they thought it should, it seemed to me. Now, I don't know what kind of birds these were or how they think. I'm not a scientist. I've not studied birds, but it just seemed to me that as I was watching them, one individual would fall a little further back, and that's when they would do their thing and they'd come back and they'd get that bird back into the flock, and then they'd start going forward again. And then it would happen again. Another one would kind of fall back, and then they'd come back, they'd get it, and then they'd go forward again. And I just thought, and I was telling my buddy, it's like, man, how amazing is that? It seems like when one falls behind, I mean, there's several hundred birds in this flock. When one falls behind, not 2 or 3 go back there and capture the one to bring him up. They don't all leave him behind there to be all alone. When he starts falling behind, the entire group as a whole, not even one, continues forward momentum. They all come back, they regroup, and then they continue on in their motion. And then the next one would fall back. They'd all come back and get him. And then they'd continue forward in motion. And again, to me, that was so profound when I look at it from a congregational setting. We're only as strong as our weakest individual in our congregations, our communities, right? You can really tell an organization by their weakest link, and how that congregation interacts with. And it really spoke to me. It's like how, as believers, we should not just continue moving forward. Like this life is not just for us to enjoy individually. All right. It's the things that we are trusted with, the things that we are given. Now, I'm not a socialist. I don't believe it's socialism. I'm going to throw that right out there. But I do believe in helping your brother and being there for your brother, whether that's financially, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Like we're supposed to be there for each other. And when somebody's starting to slip, somebody's starting to fall back, like it's our, not just an obligation, because that sounds so negative, but like it really should be our heart's desire to see everybody in our community thrive. And we could learn so much from God's creation and watching these animals, that the way that they do that. And those birds just kind of made me think, like, are we doing that as a community? Are we doing that? And so I'm doing all this pondering and things like that. I'm like, this, I really want to share this on the podcast. I don't write scripts. It's really hard for me to share things and not look like I'm reading. And especially because, I have these things that I have to put on my face, which are nowhere near me right now. So hopefully I don't have to read anything. I have to wear glasses, and I don't like wearing glasses. You wear them on camera, they tend to glare and things like that. Like I can't even watch on here how much time I'm recording or anything like that without my glasses. I always got to put those on. But anyway, I digress. I don't read things because I can't do it without looking like I'm reading. And then if I got my glasses on, I'm reading. I'm very much an off the cuff kind of guy, and I just talk and my head, I go on these rabbit trails. And anyway, so this is kind of how my head works. And I'm processing this stuff, trying to figure out how I'm going to share it with y'all. And just thought, well, I'm just going to hit record and I'm just going to talk. And even if it's rambling, hopefully somebody gets something out of it. But I woke up this morning, and one of the things that I do is I get on and I check, you know, views, and not that I'm hung up on that. I just like to see how certain things are reaching people, and how many views maybe a video got. I post on multiple different social media sites, whether it's the Book of Faces or the Insta posts, and all of those various places. But I like to look at each individual site and see if we're getting any traction anywhere, because what I don't want to do is waste time in one venue that if there's nothing happening, then there's a professional social site out there that is just not doing anything. People are more focused on money and careers than they are on testimonies and other people's wellness. That being said, so I checked these things, and I got on Facebook this morning, and I, was looking at some of the posts to see how that well they were doing, and then in my feed, one of my community groups popped up, and I was frankly appalled because the area I live in is, first off, it is the home community for one of the largest denominations in the country. Besides that, I mean, there's a church on every corner. Randomly joked that Dollar General is in direct competition with Baptists, and there's churches everywhere in this community, and everybody in their bio has something that may lead to make you believe that they're a believer. And somebody was asking something. I don't know if many of you follow sports, but today is the big game. We're not allowed to say the bowl of supers. So you get flagged for that anymore, which I don't even know how that happened or how that started. How ridiculous is that, right? You as an individual can't get on a podcast or a YouTube and without threat of being sued for copyright infringement because you say two words. And anyway, so somebody had asked on the community forum about where to watch the TPUSA halftime show, which I don't do sports. I don't plan on watching either. That's neither here nor there. This isn't about politics or anything like that. You watch what you want to watch and use your time how you want to use your time. I prefer to use my time in other ways. Not that I have never watched sports. Not that I sat at one of the parties last year with a buddy and enjoyed food and, whatever. I won't be watching this year. I got a lot of other things. I got a studio here I got to get ready for y'all. And so that's where I'm going to spend my time today. But anyhow, there was a lot of hatred and vitriol. Somebody had actually asked where to see this TPUSA halftime show. And rather than people getting on in this community and saying, what they were asking, if there was anywhere in the community, like a restaurant or someplace that was going to be live streaming it for people to get together and watching, is what they were. And the hate and vitriol that came across that community page, which I'm actually surprised that the moderators, the way that, they talk, and they'll delete some really not so bad posts, but just because they think it's disturbing, and they'll correct everybody. But this time they just let it go. And some of the hatred and the vitriol of the vileness that came out of people's mouths on this post, it was just disturbing to me in a community that claims to be, a good portion of believers in the home of this large religious organization. I mean, one of the largest in the country is stationed right here in this community. And I couldn't believe, all I could think of is, where have we gone as a country? It saddens me. I'm a veteran. I served in the military, deployed multiple times. I mean, I love my country. And it just absolutely breaks my heart to see where we are in our communities. Like, somebody can't ask a simple question, like they prefer to watch this over that. And rather than encourage that and say, hey, go ahead and watch that, it'll be seen over here, or no, there's nowhere that will be shown that I'm aware of, but here it'll be aired on this channel or this network or social media, or rather than just answering it and saying, here you go, here's the information, or just not saying anything at all. How quick have we gotten to the point where we have to just tear somebody down, accuse them of this because they want to watch that, or accuse somebody that we don't know on the other end that may be performing in one of those events, and we don't know them. We've read some headlines somewhere, and we're just too willing to just shoot things out. Like, that's kind of one of the things for social media for me. It's like, I jokingly said something to a buddy of mine, and I'm sure many of you heard it elsewhere. It's like, this world has gone so bad because people have forgotten what it's been like to get, knocked in the mouth. I got a little scar here to prove that when I was young, I learned early on, you can't always say what you want. So, but it's so easy to sit on the other side of a screen and be hateful. And it's no wonder people feel so lonely and so hopeless. You can't share what's going on in you for fear of judgment, for fear of reprisal. And I think we just really need to get away from that. I think we need to get back to loving our neighbor. That is one of the things, the two greatest commandments. Everybody gets caught up in 10 commandments or 613 commandments, or how many commandments are there? Well, we know that there are two great commandments. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second is equal to it. Love your neighbor as yourself. So if you're hating on your neighbor, how much you must hate yourself, And then there's this whole premise of, who is our neighbor? Well, look up the story of the Good Samaritan. You want to find out who your neighbor is? Look up the story of the Good Samaritan. Why don't we get back to loving our neighbor? Why don't we? There's this thing going on right now. I guess the president is declaring one nation under God again. If we're going to be one nation under God, shouldn't we be godly people? Shouldn't we get back to godly standards? Shouldn't we love God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love our neighbor as ourselves? If we ain't loving our neighbors, there's no way we're going to be great. There's no way we're going to be one nation under God. It's just going to be a title. It's just another slogan, another political slogan, another stamp on the back of a Federal Reserve note. Let's get back to truly loving our neighbor as ourselves. Let's get our bait in the water, and let's not get jealous of our brothers and sisters because they're pulling fish in and we're not catching anything this time. And let's not hate them for that. Let's not hate them for doing something different. When our Messiah returns, he's coming back for a unified church. He's coming back for a unified body. He's not coming back for Baptists and for Catholics and for Protestants and for, he's not putting a title on those. And you don't have to like that I say that. It's just a fact. He's coming for a unified body of believers. Look up another story about the many parts of the body, right? Not everybody's a thumb. Not everybody's an eye, a nose, a mouth, shoulders. Like, it takes all of these different parts for the body to work. If I got no fingers, this hand is useless, right? If I got no toes, this foot don't function properly. He's coming back for a unified body. He wants fingers and toes and ears and eyes all in the same body, a unified bride. You're either part of that or you're not. And when you're tearing down others, when you're attacking others, when you're telling everybody that, you know, turn or burn, that's not unified. Now, there's also stories about sheep and goats. You're either a sheep or a goat, right? So there's so many different analogies in there that you can look up and get a better understanding of. And I would encourage you to do that, to read the Bible for yourself. And one of the hardest parts for me, I went to college and I was working on a theological degree, and I'm one of those people that believe that the Bible should be able to stand on its own merit. There's 66 books, I believe it is, in the Bible. And so there's enough evidence within those books to substantiate one of the other books that I don't need external sources to justify or to prove the legitimacy of the Bible. And one of my hardest things in that theological degree was having to read man's writings to prove the Bible. I actually had a discussion with a professor about the fact that he didn't like the fact that I didn't want to utilize external sources. And I was very clear that the Bible should be able to stand on its own merit. It should be able to back itself. I shouldn't need a man's opinion to prove what the Bible says. And he very abruptly corrected me and told me that there was no way I was going to pass his class. And if I did pass his class, there's no way I was going to get an A if I wasn't willing to use these external sources. And be that as it may, that kind of frustrated me. And so I did. I used some external sources to do what he wanted me to do. And that was my last college course whatsoever. I did get an A in that course. And despite his telling me that I would not achieve one because he disagreed with me, he didn't have a choice because I did exactly everything that was requested of me. But because it became a battle, and I just felt more on the line that I had to prove myself more than I had to learn theology. That for me was disturbing in today's educational system when it comes to theology, especially. It's gone so much of the way of secularism. Big words, hard to say. So, yeah, that was my last theology course. That was my last college course because I don't need to read what this individual wrote in this peer journal to prove his point about what God says. If God said it, I believe it, right? It's just all there is to it. I know that that word is, I look up here because there's, there's books up here. My buddy's got some books up here. So I know that that word is a living word. And what that means to me is that word speaks to me. I could read the same passage 30 times. And every time I read that passage, depending on where I'm at in my life and what's going on in society and what's happening politically and worldwide, how it impacts me, that verse could speak something different to me every single time I read it out of those 30 times. And I have. And there's sometimes that I miss things in the verses. I had a significant aha moment this past week in one of the words. Like I've read this, in this particular walk that I'm in, I read the portions every week. Every day I read a part of the portion. And I actually caught something this time that, this is my 6th year in my walk. And I've read this same portion every year, and I read something this year that stood out for me. I went, my goodness, that is amazing that I've never seen that before. And yet here it is. And then I was talking to one of the elders at the church, and he brought it up to me. I was like, I wonder if it's just something, maybe it's just me or whatever. But he'd actually brought it up to me. And I went, that's funny you say that because I saw that very thing myself. And so, not that men don't have good things to say, not that everybody that writes a book is misguided. There are wonderful, amazing authors out there. I know several men that have written very, very amazing books. I just don't believe that those books are what should prove what the Bible says. If anything, it's the other way around. The Bible should prove that man says. So, yeah, that's just kind of another one of the thoughts that goes on in my head, is where we should be as believers. We should be reading that word. We should be testing those that are teaching by reading it for ourselves. Because if you're not reading it and you're following somebody else and they're telling you whatever they think that it says, well, what if they're telling you wrong? What if they're preaching something absolutely opposite to what it really does say? You haven't read it, so you don't know. You're just going, he went to college. He knows what he's talking about. That's kind of where our schools have gone awry. We've got all of these educators that have gone to college. All right. Now half of our kids can't read or write. They don't know arithmetic, history. We can go down a rabbit hole on that one, right? We send our kids off to get educated by educators who are uneducated. And what does that breed? It breeds uneducated kids. So the same thing speaks true in theology. Not every theologian is an idiot. Not every theologian is wrong. But I would stand to say that if a theologian's writings can't be backed by biblical evidence, then I won't trust them. How's that? A little bit better. I don't want people to stop reading. I love to read. I love to read. I don't read, fairy tales. I like to read sound stuff, but I think everybody should read. I just don't think that we as individuals should be the ones to try to prove the Bible versus the Bible should be proving us. Anyhow, now I'm getting into the rambling state, and I wanted to just get on here and talk about that. I wanted to talk about really more in the realm of community and reaching individuals, and how this past week I really have been blessed this week. This studio, I'm very excited about this, the opportunities that it opens up. I've got some wild and crazy ideas that I've been praying through, and hoping to make it more impactful, not only internationally, because we get people watching these podcasts on YouTube all over the world, and we get people listening all over the world. By way of YouTube and podcast standards, I mean, we would probably be considered failures because we're not gaining millions of followers and millions of views. But by way of godly standards, we're reaching individuals. And if that's one individual, this has all been worth it. And I got some really crazy ideas I'm praying through that we can actually, as I was talking about what was going on in that community forum, I want to be a light in my community. And so we're going to start looking at doing something a little more involved in our community to try to reach it, others an opportunity to have a voice in our community. So, be standing by for that. Hopefully you'll enjoy that as well. It'll be available to everybody. You'll be able to watch it or listen to it. I've got some furniture in here. Hopefully, I'll get more than one individual in here at a time and start doing a little bit more. Uh, I'd like to do some moderated discussion in here about world events or things of that nature and how they tie to the word, and without getting, super conspiratorial or anything like that, because I know that I am prone to that kind of stuff. But we want to keep it grounded in truth. We don't want to get into things that are beyond. There's shows out there for that stuff. Not that I don't have my own personal beliefs, and you know, it just I want this to reach new people that are desiring something different. We've all been there. We've all been in a place in our life where we thought there's got to be more. If this is all there is, do I really want this? What am I missing? Or we've looked at somebody and we've said, wow, that person seems like they've got joy. I wonder what they have. I want what they have. I think we've all experienced that at some point in our life. And so that's what we kind of want to do here is we want to answer those questions. Is there something more? Yes, there's something more. How can you experience true joy? I'll tell you how you can experience true joy. What does that person have? I can almost guarantee you what that person has. Those are all questions we desire to answer here through whatever format that we do here, whether it's the testimonies, whether it's interviews, whether it's roundtable discussions, whether it's just me coming in here and talking to you and having an opportunity to share some time with you with this bland background that we got right now. I'm just so excited to get busy on. We want to answer that question, those questions. That's our desire. Our desire is to give you hope. Our desire is to let you know that we love you. You're not crazy. You're not insane. You're You're set apart. You're being called out. You're being separated from the goats. You're a sheep, right? We're fishing. We're throwing the bait in the water. Grab the hook. Doesn't have to be my hook. It can be Melissa's hook. It can be Steve's hook. It can be Jeff's hook, Paul's hook, whoever else comes in here. It can be their hook. Grab it. I don't care whose hook you bite. If each one of these episodes reaches one individual, doesn't matter. If I stop reaching, if I stop getting views, then we'll have to reevaluate if this is what he wants us to continue doing. That as long as one person's watching, we're going to keep doing this. I'll spend the time and the money. I don't have sponsors. Everything comes out of pocket. I'm not a wealthy individual, so it's really tough to do electronics on a budget. I will promise you that, because not everything that you purchase on a budget really works all that well. I've returned more stuff than you can imagine, trying to just find the right stuff to work. I'm not using high-end microphones and arms. These are all, cheap things that I could afford to do. But, I will continue to purchase items and I will continue to pay the rent on this studio out of my pocket. I will continue doing whatever I need to do as long as one individual is being reached, as long as it's impacting people's lives. That being said, if you are somebody that has a testimony, somebody that would like the opportunity to throw your hook in the water, get that pole out of the boat, and see if you can't even bring in a little fish. We're not fishing for big fish. We're fishing for bait. Wow, that could preach right there. Because each and every one of you should be, once you're caught, once you're in the boat, you should be ready to be on a hook out in the water to catch the next one. I'm laughing because, I just kind of, what if we're not the ones in the boat with the line in the water? What if we're actually the bait on the hook, right? Wow, how profound. But either way, you should be ready to be on the hook and be brought in the boat. And so if you want to get your line in the water and have the opportunity to maybe pull in the big one, pull in the little one, reach out to me. I'd love to interview you. I'd love to have some opportunity. I'm still learning this program. I guess I can send a link to somebody if they have even a cell phone with a camera on it and an internet connection. We can do an interview. You just need to be willing to talk. If you can't share everything, you can't share everything. There are things in my testimony that I couldn't share because I've got young kids that could be impacted by it. There's things in Melissa's testimony that as, her husband and wanting to protect her, I just wasn't comfortable and she wasn't comfortable sharing. And there are things in Paul's testimony that he couldn't share. And I'll tell you, he's having some good returns on his testimony. I haven't gotten to talk to Steve about his testimony. He's a very busy guy, and he's got a young daughter, and a wife that he loves to go out and spoil. And I think he went on a trip here this past week, so I haven't really got a chance to sit down with him and see what he's heard on his. But I've heard good things on it on my side. But I know Paul is having some tremendous impact with his testimony. I love sitting and talking to him and hearing some of the things that are transpiring. And, Melissa's has reached some ladies, and so if you feel like you would like to get your testimony out there, because I'll tell you, there's somebody out there that can relate to you that just can't relate to me. And so that goes back to the many people in the boat using the same bait, using the same hooks, using the same bobbers, feet apart. And yeah, we'll take that bait, right? But if you want to get your story out there, you want to be interviewed, you want to share your testimony, you have an opportunity to reach somebody, even if it's only one, if you're happy with one. If you're looking for big crowds and big audiences and fame and fortune, this is not the platform for you because we don't have those numbers. Nor do I really care if we have ever get those numbers. I'm not looking to grow this channel into millions and billions of followers and, do the standard thing. I'm looking to reach individuals. And so if you want to partner with us and do that, I'd be more than happy to schedule a time to have you come in and sit down. Going to be a little sparse here over the next few weeks between getting the studio ready. I've got a bunch of cables I've got to purchase and get run and everything. My little 3-foot cables that I used for interviewing in the house, they're not going to work in this setup. And so I've got to get some more cables, get those run. I've got to get the sound panels up. We're going on vacation to go visit our grandbabies and our kids here in a couple of weeks. And so, we'll try to stay interactive over the next couple of weeks, but just be prepared that things are going to look a little bit different, a little bit messy. We just keep moving forward, though. We appreciate you supporting us. We appreciate you coming along with us and being a part of this. Let's talk about the importance of liking, sharing, subscribing, notifications, those kind of things. A lot of people don't understand that. What's the difference if I subscribe? So the way these platforms work is through algorithms. If you subscribe, that means you support what that channel's doing. It's a free way to support what that channel's doing. And YouTube makes money off advertising. And the more people that are subscribed to a channel or like a video or thing, that tells them that that is viable content that they can monetize. It's a business model. That's what they do. And so when you like the channel, or when you subscribe to the channel, it tells YouTube that this is a viable channel that is providing a purpose or some sort of content that is viable, and that helps the algorithms. When you like a video, that specific video, it tells them that that video has content that people are enjoying. So even if the video doesn't speak to you, like testimony may not speak to you, if you subscribe to the channel, then that will help you to push the content out so that maybe it will reach somebody. And I know that God's going to get it in the right place. It's going to land where it needs to land. However, you can help do that. You can like, subscribe, share. When you share it, it gets in front of the people. You'd be amazed at how many people come to me and said, "Hey, I shared this with somebody." And I actually have a phone number for a young man that I need to call because one of our elders at our church, she shared the video with a young man that was struggling, and now he's reaching out. And so I have a phone call to make so I can connect with him. I'm very excited about that. So those are the kind of things that help get the message out. And they're free things to do. They don't cost you anything but a little bit of time. The other thing that helps is watching the videos from beginning to end. Now, maybe you're busy, maybe you don't have time to sit down and watch it from end to end. But if you click out after watching for 3 or 4 minutes of an hour-long video, then that brings the percentage of watch time down, which is a negative. So sometimes if I'm watching some of the people that I support on YouTube, even when I'm busy, and though I need to come back and watch it later, I'll let it run in the background just so it runs from start to finish, just to help their algorithms. And then come back and watch it in bits and pieces, because it will only count, like this computer right here will only count as one watch. And so if the first time I watch through on this computer, I click out after 3 minutes, then that's all the credit they get is 3 minutes. The next time I come back and watch it from front to back, they don't get credit for that 100%. They only get credit for the first 3 minutes on that particular IP address. And so when you open these things, let it start at the beginning, let it watch all the way through, and then come back and watch it in bits and pieces later. That helps. I don't know if that's cheating or not. If you feel like it is, then don't do it. I don't feel like it is. I feel like it's, when I do it, I feel like I'm supporting a channel and helping get their content out. We're not looking to monetize, so nor are we anywhere close to monetization. So it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with getting it in front of the right individuals. God's going to reach people regardless. If he's got somebody out there that he's called, he's going to reach them. Now, that he could put them in your path and you could ignore them, and he's still going to reach them through the next person. What's going to happen is you're not going to necessarily get good marks for bypassing the opportunity. He's still going to reach them. And I believe that this channel is going to reach who it's supposed to reach. With or without your help, it's going to reach those individuals. But if you want to partner with us and you want the opportunity to maybe get a gold star, I don't know how it works, but in helping reach individuals, I believe that you will be richly rewarded for that. I believe God will account that to your glory. And we want you to have the opportunity to do that. We're not asking you for money. So that being said, all that aside, I do appreciate your support. If you can get this out there, we'd appreciate the help. It's reaching people. We are hearing of people being impacted, and it means so much to us. I don't know if you noticed my energy level kind of changed because we're talking about algorithms and money. And I'm not even asking for anybody. I'm just asking for people to help get the content out. If you're on Rumble, we're on Rumble, so we could use some followers over there. If you're on LinkedIn, we're on LinkedIn. We could use some connections over there. If you're on YouTube, continue to watch us here forever how long they'll let us do this. Between administrations, they like to change their policies. So maybe in a couple of years, we won't be allowed to talk about these things again. Maybe in a couple of years, we will. Who knows? I've got one follower, and it wasn't a good follower on X. If you know anything about X, there are these bots out there that pretend to be women, and I always delete those. So if you're on X, you can follow us there. All of them you can look up. It's Mike Check Real Life or Mike Check RL. So follow us, share, subscribe, or don't. Either way, we're going to continue doing what we're doing as long as we're reaching the one. We're going to leave the 99 to reach the one. This is the place for you. If you're going to watch the big game today, I hope you enjoy yourself. Please be safe while doing it. So if you drink, please do it responsibly and safely. We don't want anybody hurt. This is the number one time of the year. Game day is always the number one time of the year for domestic violence. We don't promote domestic violence. We don't stand for domestic violence. We don't want you hurting each other. Please, it's just a game. It's nothing to get so riled up about that you have to hurt the ones that you love. So please don't do that. With that being said, I want you to know that I love you. I want you to know that God loves you. I want you to know that there's so much more for you. Just put your faith, your trust, and your hope in Him. I challenge you just to challenge Him. If you don't believe, just what do you got to lose? I'm here. If you're there, show me. If He's not there, He won't show you, right? You've lost nothing. But here's what I know, is He is there, and you will be profoundly impacted by just inviting Him to make Himself known. That being said, if you need a Bible, reach out to us. We'll get you one. I don't know how, but we will get you one. If you need to talk, reach out to us. We'll talk. We'll pray with you. We'll pray for you. Whatever you need. Besides money, I can't give money. I don't have money. I'm spending it on cheap electronics. But if you need somebody to talk to, you need some encouragement, you need some prayer, you need a Bible so you can read it for yourself, so you know what it says, then reach out to us. We'd love to do that for you. I love you. God bless you. And thank you for joining us today on this episode. Bye-bye.